Welcome into MJT football. I am Tony Tucker. I am joined by NFL Mike on TikTok. We are without Joe Morley today, but we are going to do our best, talk about free agency news, Lamar Jackson, Derek Carr, I would assume we're going to get into. But Jalen Ramsey went back to the city that keeps the roof blazing. Miami, party in the city where the heat is on. Little Will Smith opening for everybody. This old man's getting jiggy with it.
Hasn't Zero ever heard of the phrase "better late than never"?
That he needs to go look at all the old idioms or axioms of the past. Google it, my friend. As I said, this is MJT football. We are three friends who just like talking football, but we're always looking for a fourth, so hit that subscribe button. If you are listening to the audio version of this on whatever podcast platform is your preference, head on over to YouTube and just throw in MJT football and talk football with us. We have a lot of regular people who show up at the show. They're not regular people. They're outstanding people, but they're regulars to the program, and they come in here and they fill up the comments and they let us know where we're being irrational or absurd, and we welcome that as much as possible. Mike is this cranberry juice?
No, it's not. It's I call it hydration juice. Okay. It's a mixture, Swero, water, some bubbly to give it a little sparkle, a little hydration juice.
Hydration juice from what? What are you dehydrated from? Let the people know why you're.
I don't want to put that out on the air, Tony. Okay. I don't want to put that out on the air because
Mike.
It's just that I relax. I relax in the evenings. Okay.
Mike's been boozing. How are you feeling? I thought this morning was going to be a little bit crazier. I also think NFL Network thought there was going to be a little more frenzy since they titled the program NFL Free Agency Frenzy, and there was very little fanaticism or whatever the right word is that I'm searching for in that moment. But I'm going to give you the choice. Where would you like to start? What would you like to talk about first? And anybody in the comments.
What should we talk about first, guys? I think we should talk about this first. I think this is my favorite news of the week. Derek Carr, officially no longer a Las Vegas Raider. He's heading to the New Orleans Saints. I don't know the exact details in the contract. I think it was 4 for 160. Was it 4 160? Or
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so big deal for him. Kind of similar to what he already had with the Raiders. Similar pay structure, similar numbers there. I'm happy for Derek Carr going to New Orleans. I just really wish he would have been patient. Like last year, we saw some guys, immediately sign. Like Carson Wentz signed to the Commanders right away. And these guys sign immediately. And instead of surveying what was out there, seeing how things can change. Like, for example, a big deal is now Darius Slay's situation, right? All the teams that were going after Jalen Ramsey are probably going to now shift to Darius Slay. I know the Detroit Lions had Slay before, and now that connection makes sense. And I feel like a connection like that might have emerged for Derek Carr if he would have just been a little bit more patient. But he must have just loved NOLA. I don't know if you saw the press conference, his introductory press conference. He just seemed to just be in love with the city and the fans and the people and everything to do with New Orleans. So maybe it was more of a family and a location fit for Carr that he was looking for than the best chance to win a Super Bowl, which I think was, out there.
Yeah, I'm happy for Derek Carr. I don't think this is the best spot to be in. I know that they seem to have some cap wizards down there, and they always seem to do whatever it takes. They were below they were in the red, and then they signed Derek Carr still while they were in the red, and somehow they will come out of this all fine. Like Joe Morley always says, the salary cap is a myth. And everybody, I think, is starting to believe that same thing as like what the Chargers were able to do clearing cap space. But as for Derek Carr going to the Saints, this was like the third best option in my opinion, right? Like why didn't you talk to the Dolphins? I think the Carolina Panthers were always better, and the Washington Commanders. All three of these spots to me were better places for him to go and have success, because everybody keeps going, Derek Carr finally has a defense. And the Saints were top 5 last year. But I think scoring, for whatever reason, was down all across the NFL. I don't think that happens 2 years in a row. And a lot of the players on that defense are aging. Like, we can't think of any like young emerging stars they have on that defense. Like, Lattimore was banged up a lot last year, and they were still able to be top 5. But then Demario Davis is in like year, 10, 11? Cam Jordan's been around for a long time. Like, at a certain point, this is going to fall off. I think also part of the reason he wanted to go to the Saints was to reunite with Dennis Allen, who we can all agree was he the strong point of the team as a head coach? I don't know, but he does seem happy. I did see a little bit, some excerpts from the press conference. And if this is a place where he wanted to go, good for him. And maybe he did get some assurances that Dennis Allen is going to get to play out this contract, because that's been one of the issues for Derek Carr, is that he's had 6 coaches in 9 years, which seems impossible at a certain point. It's like, bro, how can you have 6 coaches in 9 years? Like, what do you play for the Cleveland Browns? Play for the Houston Texans of the last like decade? No organization should be that bad.
Basically the same thing. But yeah, I mean, that's the way they've been running their show over there. That is the one thing I am happy for Carr, is he is going into a pretty steady situation with an organization that has shown they're committed to being competitive at all times, trying to win games at all times. I think that Derek Carr kind of got set up last year into a situation where the Raiders might not have had much plans to move on with them, unless they went on some crazy run. So I think that that is at least the very minimum. He's going to an organization with a coach that he likes, a great offensive line in front of him, some weapons in the passing game, especially if Michael Thomas can get healthy. Like, he's not going to a terrible situation, but like we're saying, I think there were some better spots out there for him. All right, we're going to try and speed around this, guys. So
I'm going to go real quick on this, and you're going to love this. And this has nothing to do with Carr and Nola. The Raiders have no plan, Mike. I don't see any plan from the Raiders whatsoever. Like, it is a mess. I don't see a defensive plan. I don't see an offensive plan. They use Carr to sucker Adams to Vegas, and now you're like, wait, who's playing quarterback? Well, they'll fall back on their top 5 defense. Oh, wait, they don't have that either? What do they have, Mike?
Yeah, and I think that their plan was Tom Brady, and they kind of got spoiled. I think that's what their plan was, because it doesn't really make sense, right? Well, what are they doing?
Or Aaron Rodgers, or like one of these veterans they thought they were going to get. Now they have a pissed-off running back who they're get franchise tag, no quarterback, and a wide receiver who's looking around going, wait, I'm trying to get to the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Or win a Super Bowl. One of the two.
I know. He's gonna leave if it's ugly for a couple years. He's gonna leave. All right, Tony. The Panthers are officially on the clock, and this is controversial, but it shouldn't be controversial. I think personally the Panthers gave up a hefty package to move up to first, and I think there could be some smoke screens being thrown out there, but they could be unclear of who they even want to pick at first, or if they want to pick at first.
Mike, I don't understand this at all. I was beside myself. Like, you guys saw me, and my thumbs couldn't text fast enough to talk to you guys about this, where I was just like, Mike, what is happening? Is this for real? Like, when they moved up, I was like, okay, great. They went from 9 to 1. What did they swapped, and then they maybe gave up like a second and a fourth. And then the terms come out, and it's like, well, a first for this year, and then a future first. And then DJ Moore, who's a top 15 wide receiver, who is the equivalent of a first-round pick. Like, we've seen wide receivers in this market going for a first-round pick. So that, to me, is it might not be a top 5 pick, but you're telling me that one of these teams at the end that couldn't use a wide receiver wouldn't have traded a 28th overall pick for DJ Moore. He's worth a first-round pick. Then there's other picks involved in it. And then the report comes that they'd be willing to trade back if they identify multiple options from that. Harrison, I hope you have a strong support unit around you, because you are going to need some hugs, my friend. Like, what is... I didn't understand this at all. I don't think there was a quarterback in this class that I would have said, we're going to give up this much to go get. Like, there's just too many questions around all of them.
I mean, there's only a couple quarterbacks in the history of the league that I would feel comfortable going and getting for that package. They traded away their first 4 picks of the next 2 drafts for this move up. Hopefully, whoever they pick ends up being the guy. Harrison saying he doesn't care they have free agency. You could have had free agency and kept DJ Moore without having to go crazy in this deal, or let someone else do it. So that way you can see where the chips are falling and then make a strategic move from there. Yeah, I agree with you, because I have a video dropping today on TikTok. By the way, TikTok people, come over to MJT Football on YouTube, about how the Sean Payton, Devontae Adams, and Calvin Ridley trade packages combined are less than what the Panthers are moving up to draft CJ Stroud.
Yeah, what? Or Bryce Young, or
whoever it's gonna be. But
Richardson. Yeah. This to me is like, I look at it like this: you could have guaranteed Lamar Jackson a bunch of money and given up 2 first-round picks to get a proven MVP in the NFL. Like, you could have just went to Lamar Jackson, and David Tepper's got money. Like, that's not the issue. It's not like he's one of these guys that's like, well, I'm struggling to find cash to put in escrow. Like, everything I've read is that David Tepper has very deep pockets. So, like, why not go out there and just say, like, this is the plan. We're going to bring in Lamar Jackson. We're willing to give up 2 first-round picks for a slight quarterback, possibly from Alabama, who played with a bunch of first-round talent. CJ Stroud, who played with like 5 top 15 picks in the past 2 NFL drafts. Like,
they're all receivers.
Or Anthony Richardson. Yeah. These guys all have upside, but we know what Lamar Jackson is. And so if I'm giving up 2 picks, why not just say, hey, Lamar, here's 4 years, fully guaranteed, $200 million, and we're giving up 2 first-round picks. Like, I just feel like that's the move that I would make.
They could have done it, and this is why I'm concerned, because I was actually happy with where the Panthers were going. I feel like the defense is steady. You can just add some veteran leadership, add some role players, whatever it is, add depth, and keep the defense similar to what it was in previous years. And now you get Frank Reich. If you give him what he needs to work with, the offense will be at least average to good anyways as well, no matter what direction they went, other than, you know, trading their star wide receiver and everything for a rookie. Like Harrison's saying, they have free agency and they have a ton of cap space. But, you know, I think that Chicago now is a more, you know, enticing destination for veterans trying to sign and go somewhere. And they have just as much cap space, even with DJ Moore. So I don't know how many free agents are running to Carolina's door and saying, and pay me out. You're going to get Kareem Hunt and, you know, OBJ, like receivers and older guys that are trying to cash out one last time. That's the only way you're going to be able to convince people.
That's the thing. What's going on, Tyler? Appreciate you stopping by. Fill up that chat with your thoughts. I want to say this about that situation, Mike, with free agency. Teams and players are more frequently flocking to where the position is that they have a chance to be competitive, and that's with a quarterback. If you don't know who the quarterback is, do we think that any like high-valued free agents are going to want to sign with the Panthers, where they're going to be in a position in a few years where the team is trying to dump their salary and trade them, you know, or cut them early in their I just don't see that being as good of a destination as I thought it was before they gave up all of that to go get the first-round pick. Now, we both think Frank Reich is a very good coach and would have been happy had Brandon Staley been let go if Frank Reich would have been in consideration for the job, right? I think he's good. I think that this pick has to be for Bryce Young. Like, you have to me, if I'm trading all of that, I'm going and I'm getting Bryce Young. CJ Stroud, sure, that's fine. But I would do it. If I did it, I would do it for Bryce Young.
Yeah, it very much reminds me of trading up, and then they have this choice between, you know, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, and it's like, if you didn't know who you wanted, maybe you shouldn't have traded the first-round picks to go up and get them. But anyways, we'll see what happens. There's a lot of Chargers fans in the chat, so we'll skip ahead to the Chargers rumors here. The Chargers cleared $40 million in cap space like that, Tony, in 2 days. I mean, that gets you excited. I know we got some veterans that are coming down to the wire with their contract. We may lose some guys in the next couple of years. But what I've been telling everyone who has been saying, oh, but the Chargers aren't going to have any money next year. Well, guess what, guys? No matter what we did, the Chargers weren't going to have no money soon. Soon we are going to have to sign our quarterback to $60 million per year, and we're not going to have money to be spending big in free agency. So before that happens, why not go crazy? Tom Telesco's pushing the chips in and saying, Either I'm going to win the Super Bowl or come close or get fired this year. One of those two.
Well, I think him and Staley both had to do something like that, right? And I do I like Bobby Wagner, and for the right price, sure. But I'd rather have Drew Tranquil back. I'd rather get Trey Pipkins and bring in another offensive lineman. Chargers fans don't want to hear this, but all of the moves that I would like to do are not like super fun and wild. Like my number 1 and number 2 free agents that haven't been on the team previously are Darius Slayton and Jamal Williams. I think these are 2 players that would come in. They're going to be great team players. They fill significant roles that need to be filled. Darius Slayton has proven that he can go downfield and make big catches with Daniel Jones. Now we're going to put him with the deep ball accuracy of Herbert. I would love that fit right there. Jamal Williams from Southern California, we could alleviate some pressure. So I think those are 2 positions that I would go out and I would say, here's what we're going to do. Williams plugs into that Zeke role, Eckler more in the Tony Pollard role. Now we can use a first-round pick, bring in a tight end. We don't got to spend there. And then we just go back. We could still bring back Bobby Wagner and Drew Tranquil with that kind of money. Like I don't know what's happening. I really, like I said to you guys, I hope they don't splurge on defense. Because Staley, last year, you spent all of this money on defense, and it was still, 23rd by the end of the year? Don't do that. Don't spend on defense.
That's what I'm afraid of as well. I think that when we talk about the extra cap space cleared, I'm with you. I think picking up guys that are going to be great help to the star players that we already have will be our best moves to do with this cap space. And, of course, like a Wagner situation, we're in luck that we need a linebacker this offseason. And reports have come out, I don't know if you saw that Drew Tranquil and Nas Adderley are rumored and expected to have no interest from the Chargers of being re-signed. So they're going to be going for a linebacker. That's why I said the bad news is we're going to lose Drew Tranquil. The good news is Drew Tranquil is in a linebacker class with Denzel Perryman, Tremaine Edwards, Bobby Wagner, or Edmonds. These guys are solid middle linebackers that scrape. I feel like there's a couple guys that fit the scheme and that what we want. Like just come in and please show Kenneth Murray what to do and what we need you to do. That's what we kind of need. And we were talking about it in a text. I think that a guy like Denzel Perryman, you get him at a discount, a 2-year deal. It's really short. It expires with all these other contracts and relieves the cap right when Herbert's is going to start to hit. It might be a perfect move if they can't, convince Bobby Wagner not to return home to Seattle, because the reports are that they're interested in Wagner. And I think what Staley's thinking is we've had problems at the linebacker position other than obviously Drew Tranquil and Kaiser White. Like this guy kind of just fixes all those problems in one signing. If Wagner still has the juice that he's had. But I would rather see them, discount at linebacker, just get a really solid guy that fits the scheme and retain Trey Pipkins. Like you said, bring in an RB2 like Jamal Williams. Bring in another receiver, whatever they see fit to spending wise. Because there's space now. 30 million about.
Yeah, in the linebacker class, there's guys you didn't even mention, like Levante David is out there and TJ Edwards from the Eagles. Like, there's a lot of middle backers that can play. My thing with Drew Tranquil is that he's very good in coverage too, right? Like, he does a lot of things. In Staley's defense, for whatever reason, linebackers are going to make a lot of tackles, and he made the tackles. He did the green dot stuff really nicely as sort of being a command, like having full command in that defense. I would prefer to get the young guy if the prices are going to be the same as opposed to Bobby Wagner on a 1-year, 2-year deal or something like that. That's the only difference for me. But if Bobby Wagner's there, I'm gonna rock with him. I'm gonna love him, support him, just like whoever signs up there. But I would prefer Tranquil's back.
Chargers got space. Get ready, everybody. Here we go again. Round 2. And I'm getting all the, didn't you say this last year already? Here we go. Let's talk about this one. Jalen Ramsey, it's official, is being traded to the Miami Dolphins for a 3rd-round pick and backup tight end. I already forgot his name, so I'm listed on there. Hunter
Long?
Hunter Long.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Ramsey package, I expect it to be a little bit bigger, but when you look at how much, veteran defensive players like him are going for in the last couple of years, it makes sense that he went for a not so impressive package. But what's your thoughts on the deal? the fit. He's obviously joining Xavier Howard, Vic Fangio, Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, those guys in Miami whose defense struggled a little bit last year anyways.
So I think the move is perfect for Miami, right? Because you can have these guys, you don't really have to switch sides. I think they're at similar spots in their career, right? Like where Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey. So you're going to have two high-level cornerbacks in Fangio's system, which is great for the Dolphins. I think part of the reason, Mike, that the package wasn't as what we thought it would be is because I think Ramsey kind of told the Rams, I want to play in the state of Florida and I want to play for the Dolphins and I want to be closer to my family. And I think they kind of said, like, as long as you don't make it be known that this is the only place you want to go, so we lose total leverage, we'll basically just make sure we negotiate with that one team. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's because the Rams, I didn't hear about one other team talking about it. And when this initially came out, I texted you guys a picture of a Dolphin when it was like Jalen Ramsey's going to be on the block. And I was like, a second-round pick to the Miami Dolphins. Like, it just made too much sense. If he can't, the Chargers can't afford him. He's always wanted to play with Derwin. So that wasn't going to happen. So he knew that why not go play for a team that with a quarterback, which strap in everybody, it's going to be Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady will be the quarterback for the Dolphins next year. I know they gave 2 of their 5th-year option, but it's happening. Yeah, it's good. It's a good spot for him in Miami, right? Like let's go be home and be in South Beach, and I'm happy for Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, and he stays on a competitive team. Miami will be competitive for that division next year again, as long as they can keep their quarterback healthy, whoever it is. Whether it's Tua, Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady. But for the Rams here, Zero's talking about, I don't think they're rebuilding. I think the biggest thing for the Rams wasn't necessarily the pick package that they get back for these guys, and you can see it. They didn't try and trade Bobby Wagner. They just released him immediately. They shopped around a bunch of other guys and sold Jalen Ramsey for relatively cheap. The biggest thing, Zero, is they're trying to clear some cap space. They're in a situation where they've got to start from scratch, and they know that they can do a lot of work here in free agency. So clearing some cap space will help them a little bit.
Real quick on this, since we were talking about the Rams, I think that the Rams are secretly hoping that Aaron Rodgers retires. Because if he retires, that's going to open up a market for Matthew Stafford, where I believe that they could get Woody Johnson on the phone and say, hey, Woody, we want a first-round pick for Matthew Stafford. And they could send him out there because the Jets have been so committed. They have buried Zach Wilson. I think if Rodgers is on the roster, you can keep Wilson on the bench for the next 2 years and maybe try to circle back to him. But you cannot put him out as the starter next year, not for that team's sake or the fans' sake or anything. So they have to get a veteran quarterback that's going to lead the team. And I think the Rams could say, like, Matthew Stafford, we want a first-round pick for him, and Woody Johnson would pay. I also think there's some other teams out there, like Washington Commanders went out and got an offensive coordinator, and I don't think it's for my boy Taylor Heineke and Sam Howell. Like, I just don't believe that.
Yeah.
All right.
We could see something happen. And the Rams have been reportedly open for business, and another team that I'm kind of surprised is basically throwing in the towel on this era of their roster. Everyone on the Vikings is leaving. The entire team is leaving pretty much, except for Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Cam Dantzler, Eric Kendricks, Dalvin Cook, Zadarius Smith, and this is another Smith, Harrison Smith. All potentially leaving the Vikings, likely to leave the Vikings at this point. The Vikings kind of resetting at the same time as the Packers. How unfortunate is that for Vikings fans?
So this is what I don't understand. Darius Smith asked for a trade, but they said you're not getting traded, right?
Yeah,
that was the last thing I heard.
That's kind of up in the air with him. I don't know what's going on. Yeah.
So he basically wants more money because he finished the season quite strong in the pressures and sacks department. Harrison Smith, I didn't hear anything about that one, and I didn't hear anything about Dalvin Cook. When did this go down?
Dalvin Cook is being shopped with multiple teams having interest, including the Miami Dolphins. And Harrison Smith is expected to be released if they can't find a trade partner or agree to a severe pay cut.
Yeah, well, it's a tough time for him to be on free agency because there's a younger, I think, better players at this point in their career. It's really weird because Harrison Smith is one of those guys that we just overlook sort of as like in the fan talk community. Like We
Mhm.
don't talk about how great this guy has been for the better part of a decade at his position because there's bigger, flashier players in other cities that are more fun to talk about than, the Twin Cities, don't you know it, on there in St. Paul, Minnesota. Um, I I think the Vikings are fine. Brian Flores is going to get out there and coach up. I think Booth has a much better second year. I think he's a very good player, much better second year. And then Lewis Seen, the kid they got from Georgia. Those two young men, I think, will play much better in this system. I believe they also got the linebacker from Oklahoma, Asamoah. He'll play better in Flores' system. They're just gonna. The Vikings are gonna be fine. Delvin Cook reportedly needs shoulder surgery. He has that the subluxation thing or whatever it's called, where it just slips out of socket all the time. He's got a brace on. I think Delvin Cook's better days are behind him, and if you're paying that much, send him to a team that is willing to take on that salary cap issue and move on. They drafted the big running back from North Carolina, Chandler, last year. I'm sure he's on the roster somewhere. Like, give me some carries. They'd probably like to bring back Alexander Madison, who's a free agent, I believe. Like, be fine with that.
Yeah, so we'll see how they go about, kind of retooling here. Kirk Cousins is playing into his last year of his deal also, and they're saying that Kirk is willing to play it out again, just like he did with the Washington, now Commanders football team. So I think that it's going to be interesting. We might see a little bit of a transition phase. I don't know if the Vikings fall in love with someone in the next couple of drafts. Maybe they'll try and go and get for post Kirk Cousins plan with Justin Jefferson. I think that's the biggest thing is keep 18. Keep 18. That's the guy you need to keep.
Yeah, it's funny too because at what point does there start to be rumblings where Jefferson isn't happy with Kirk Cousins, right? Because right now Jefferson's putting up numbers and getting accolades, and he's going to get paid a lot of money, right? I think that's part of the reason they're clearing out some of this cap space is because they know that they're about to make him the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. But zero. Who's the first best team in that division?
That's what I'm saying. I was about to ask you the same question. Was Zero's comment is who do you have winning that division now, Tony? Because the Bears they'd have a lot of work to do for me to believe that they're going to just win the division. This flux is happening with the Vikings, and I think they'll be a questionable team. Like, what are they going to look like next year? Because they won 14 games last year. So even if you lose all these players, they could still easily win 10 or 11 games. Green Bay's probably going to fall out of it. Does that leave Detroit as the favorite next year?
So I think two things for the division. One, what I want to see more than anything is for the Green Bay Packers to draft a wide receiver in the first round since Javon. I want that to be the biggest middle finger to Aaron Rodgers that they could ever do. And with this pick, they take Jordan Addison. It's like, oh, that would be hilarious.
They draft him with the pick the Jets send.
Yeah, so that would be even better. They go back to back. They go Mayer and in the first round, and then second round they get Flowers or Josh Downs or something. I think Jordan Love is going to be fine. Like, I don't think that this division is in a place where any of these teams have proven dominance within them. So I think that I probably like the Lions best right now, the Bears second, Packers third, and the Vikings fourth. I just think that what the Vikings did last year is not repeatable unless Brian Flores is the difference maker. And I want to see what the defense looks like, what he has to work with before I make the final prediction on that one. We got a lot of time.
Of this list of players, Tony, who do you want to be a Charger most? I'm going with Eric Kendricks.
Ooh, I mean,
Kendricks is a good guy to add to the secondary. He's young.
Well, I mean, if you're just asking me which one I want, we don't have to pay the full salary as Darius Smith. Like, wouldn't it be great to just be able to flip out Bosa or Mack for Za'Darius Smith? Like, that's got to help out your defense because I have to believe the Chargers are going to score more points this year, Mike, and they're going to have some more 6 to 10 point leads in the fourth quarter where pass rush is going to be next level, right? And Chris Rump has to take that next leap. We saw it in the final 5 or 6 weeks where he started to get more pressures and a couple of sacks, but he's just got to take that next level where he can be a guy.
Chop liver over here.
Some fans from the Morleys. Tony's my favorite. Thank you fun with the Morleys.
Anyway, speaking of the Packers coming in fourth place, the Jets are officially in, Tony. It is reported that the Jets and the Packers have all, pretty much agreed to the package that would be dealt for Aaron Rodgers. If Rodgers would just say he's going to play already. Like he does this every single year, it feels like now. And it's starting to get to a point where I was a fan of Rodgers, especially when we started going on the Pat McAfee show. I start to pull away the curtain a little bit. I love it when players do that and give you a look at what goes on behind the scenes. But at this point, you're just going crazy. Brendan Marshall is on I Am Athlete Pod on their YouTube channel. He ran into Rodgers at some kind of charity event and is basically begging him to tell him, like, tell me, what are you doing, man? We're all waiting. And Rodgers just keeps us all in the dark and says, don't worry, there's a time for that. I'll tell you. Well, the time is the 14th of March, Aaron. Come on.
So I have so many thoughts on this, Mike. And you know this because now I used to have to defend Favre for being a diva, right? For people who don't know this, I grew up a Packers fan. When the Packers and Favre split, I was a man without a country for many, many years. But I grew up a massive Packers fan, and Favre was my guy. And when he was pushed out, I went with him and said Aaron Rodgers would be garbage. I was really wrong about that. Aaron Rodgers is an all-time great quarterback. But now everybody's getting to see, like, this is just what happens. And I think it's something that has to do with Green Bay, where it's like you still want to play, but you're not necessarily interested in all the other stuff. Here's the thing. I don't really care. I think that Aaron Rodgers has earned the right to make his decision whatever he wants, but he still needs to be fair to whatever the team is. And I think the team probably has a pretty good idea. Because you can't tell me that the Jets are going to go, and it would be stupid if they go into free agency not knowing what Rodgers is going to do and miss out on all of the other potential quarterbacks that they may need to fill this spot. Because then you become real desperate. And the price might go to a first and a third to trade for a guy like Stafford, or at least a first-round pick for Ryan Tannehill to pry him away. And all of a sudden now you're paying crazy prices because you are, extremely desperate. Aaron Rodgers wants to be the headline, wants to be the news, wants to carry it, wants to control the narrative. So I think this either happens on McAfee, right? Or we don't hear it until maybe Wednesday or Friday or something, where things start to die down and Aaron Rodgers and the Jets can have their moment in the sun. But I do think he's going to the Jets.
I think it's happening as well. And like you're saying, maybe it's a Packers thing, but it just feels like for the last 3 seasons, even though Rodgers is winning MVPs in this time span, that both Rodgers and the Packers are halfway into each other. Rodgers is halfway in, halfway out the door to other ventures, and the Packers are halfway in, halfway out the door to other ventures. It's time to rip off the Band-Aid and do it and move Rodgers if he's going to keep playing football, or Rodgers retire. He's keeping us in the dark here. I thought that darkness retreat was going to solve all his problems, solve all the answers, and he's going to come out there and scream to the mountaintops which team he's going to go to. I'm a Jet! Yeah! And, something echoes it across
he still is. He's producing the TV show that is Aaron Rodgers. Like, he's keeping his name relevant and entertaining. He's bringing... Like, do you know how many more people were exposed to Aubrey Marcus, like a philosophical podcast, like his buddy? He went on there and millions of people tuned in, and he probably gained a large viewership. Aaron Rodgers is extremely intelligent. And the sooner that everybody just gets on board with the idea that this guy knows exactly what he's doing, he may not know exactly what he wants to do, but he knows exactly what he's doing. Like, he's aware of it. And I think he does want to play football, and it will be for the Dolphins or the Jets.
March the 14th is Tuesday, where Aaron Rodgers is scheduled to go on the Pat McAfee show just hours before free agency is going to open. So maybe y'all should tune in to that. Let's see what else we got here. We talked about the Panthers. We talked about Carr. We talked about the Chargers, the Vikings. You guys leave anything in the chat you want us to talk about. This could be our last topic, maybe the biggest topic. So what happened was, Quincy Williams just extended with the Jets. So there you go. Bam. Or Quinnen Williams. Sorry. Quincy Williams. Linebackers Quincy and
the D lineman is Quinnen.
Yeah. It's Quincy, the linebacker. Anyways, Lamar Jackson. So what happened was Lamar Jackson got the non-exclusive franchise tag. And Joe Morley, credit to him, by the way, was talking about this tag and how it could be used in the Lamar Jackson situation. And he was saying the Josh Jacobs situation, maybe even the Saquon Barkley situation, because teams can actually negotiate the contract with the player while they're still, tagged on their old team, and then their old team has the opportunity to match that offer. And that's what the Ravens basically are doing. I think what the idea was for the Ravens is they were going to have basically the market tell them how much they have to pay Lamar to keep him in town, but none of the teams are interested anymore. So do you think that maybe the teams just don't want to pay the price, don't want to negotiate the deal for Baltimore, knowing they're just going to match whatever offer is offered? Or do you think the teams actually came together and said, you know what, that thing that happened with Deshaun Watson, if we're ever at threat of that happening again, none of us are going to offer the player the deal? What do you think it is? Because I'm completely confused as what's going on here.
I don't believe anybody's not interested in Lamar Jackson. I think that there's I think there's 6 or 7 teams that aren't interested in Lamar Jackson, right? But the rest of them, where you have even a little bit of wiggle room with your quarterback, you are interested in Lamar Jackson. So I think that it's gamesmanship, right? Nobody's going to jump out. Atlanta's not going to say oh, we're going to make a strong push, for a second there, I was like, the Panthers are in a great position. The Commanders are in a great position. What about if the Buccaneers don't want to fully give up on what's going on? What they've built there. The fan base has been built back to where it was from, those Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, Barber, Lynch days back, with Gruden's only time in the sun there. There are teams that would definitely benefit from this. And I think that at a certain point that somebody can bring Lamar Jackson a contract where he's like, now you're speaking my language, and I will accept this. And then it's going to be interesting to see if the Ravens really do want to keep him around, because I think the Ravens do want to keep him around, but they also don't want to be the team that sets the new precedent for what quarterbacks are getting. Because if you're Herbert, Burrow, or Hurts, you're waiting for the conclusion of what happens here. All of their agents are saying, you guys are in your 3rd year. You're going to get paid. I'm going to get you a massive deal. Well, let's wait and see what happens. And the Ravens are saying, we don't want to be that team when there's 3 franchise quarterbacks that need to have deals that is going to set the market. It's going to say, all right, well, Burrow's going to get 52. Herbert gets 51, Hurts gets 51. You know what I'm saying? They don't want that to be the case.
Yeah, and they're the team that's backs up against the wall where they're tagging this guy. The other 3 teams, the Eagles, Bengals, and Chargers, are in a better situation where they can wait it out a couple more years, even if they want to, technically. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, I was kind of on the fence. What's going on here? Are teams colluding together? I thought at first maybe teams just didn't want to put that offer on the table just to have the Ravens match it. So no teams put an offer on the table. The Ravens ended up in the same situation where they have to still try and figure it out with Lamar. Lamar potentially could be on the trade market, and you could trade for him after this. But after seeing the Panthers trade that package to move up, I think that the NFL teams are reluctant to give Lamar Jackson fully guaranteed. Now, a team that I think to keep an eye on that would do it is possibly the Washington Commanders. I think that they're in a situation where they want to raise the value of their franchise. They want to turn this thing around with the new name and everything. It's just a perfect move for them to make a move on a young guy in his prime, one of the faces of the NFL right now.
Yeah, I agree. Phil has an interesting point where he talks about the teams came together. They don't want to do the work for Baltimore, right? They don't want to spend all this time negotiating, figure out what it looks like. And then Baltimore goes, oh, that offer sheet is signed. We'll agree to those terms and we'll take it. They don't want to put that work in. I do think that there is a portion of that, and there are certain teams who don't want to do that. But if you know what the cap situation is and you know what Lamar is looking for, you know that you can basically call the bluff of the Ravens and go over what they're willing to put together. They will do that. I do think there's also an element of the fact that these owners do not want to be negotiating with the players. They love the buffer of the agent because you can be very honest in that situation with the agent about what you think about the player. If you have to sit there with a player and go, well, hey, you know what? You're not that great of a passer. Hey, you get injured a lot. hey, we didn't like something that you put out on social media. Hey, you have to be honest because you are negotiating with them as the agent representing themselves, and you have to say some things that are going to be very hurtful. Now they're catching feelings, and you're saying, hey, your offer, you don't value me. And now that person is coming back and saying, like, I think that the owners do not want to be negotiating with half of their roster because Lamar Jackson was able to sit down and broker a game-changing deal. Like, they do not want this to be the new method. And as somebody who's had agents, agents are extremely valuable and definitely worth the money. Just give them the money and let them figure all of this stuff out. It's fractions of time and headaches and everything else. Just move on.
Yeah, and you're going to see Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, and Justin Herbert's agents, advise them to go ahead and wait for the Lamar Jackson deal to go through. Well, Tony, believe it or not, that's all like the super breaking news that I have here. Did you have anything that you wanted to cover? There's smaller stuff throughout the NFL. Small things are happening. Darren Payne, I think, just got one of the biggest contracts in defensive tackle history this morning. That's a big move for Washington, which we were just talking about. I don't think there's really anything else huge breaking right now. I'm surveying Twitter, looking for things other than Quincy Williams, staying in New York with his brother, Quentin Williams. Got that cleared up. Nothing else is really breaking. Field Yates believes St. Louis still deserves an NFL team. Hear this, Tony, and this will make you excited for St. Louis, kind of proving a point. 40,000 sellout for the XFL game today. 40,000 people go to watch it. That's only half of an NFL stadium, but that is a lot of people to watch an XFL game. Those stands are empty in Vegas.
Yeah, that's a good number. I love to see it. I love to see people getting out there and supporting football and young people in their dreams. But Bomani Jones said the same thing about the need to have an agent, Tony. Yeah, there you go. Bomani Jones, much more successful, smarter man than I. So if Bomani said it, then yeah, it's got to be right. The Daron Payne signing is great. I'm glad for him and Washington. And I think Washington is Lamar Jackson away from being in the second potentially NFC championship game of the playoffs next year. I just love the roster there. Ron Rivera has had a ton of success in this league, and that would be a huge difference maker. This is going to wrap up the show. So anybody listening on the audio version of this, share it with a friend, consider subscribing, head on over to YouTube and subscribe over here. Afix coming in at the end to celebrate. Jalen Ramsey is gone. Yeah. and the 49ers path just gets that much easier. Exactly. They got the Cardinals are going to lay down this season. The Rams are linked to Mike White potentially. Yeah, great news for him. The Seahawks are the only thing that stands in front of them. And Geno Smith, I have a feeling, is going to at least start penning that letter about writing back a little bit this year.
A little pen.
A rough draft.
We talked about everything today, y'all. So if you were just tuning into the live stream, please rewind it. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel before you guys go. Turn on the notification bell so you can be here when we do go live. But throughout this entire show, if you guys are just tuning in now, we talked about Carr to New Orleans, the Panthers trading up, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Ramsey to the Dolphins, the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, Vikings basically selling their entire team, Rams basically selling their entire team, Chargers trying to buy more for their team, and more. So please go back, check out all that stuff. Appreciate you guys for tuning into this one. Anything else, Tony? Can I sign us out?
No. Free agent frenzy.
We'll see you guys probably sometime in the middle of the week once players start signing with their new team.